In this video, I am going to teach you how to understand the history of North Africa and the timeline of our history in North Africa. Now, I also want to make it very clear that a lot of people in Africa, our literacy rate is really, really low. And so a lot of the times when we are talking to people, right, we have these unnecessary arguments because a lot of people just don't read and write. Right? And there's reasons for that, right? Religion is one of them, and reading and writing is not just in English or French. We are talking about even in their other languages. Why do I say this? I say this because a lot of people like to argue this history here when they talk to us, Bantu people, right? And the joke is, ha 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 ha, Bantus never made it to North Africa because it's deserty. It's a desert. They could not travel that and this and, all those people, number one, are ignorant. Number two, they really don't care about the actual history of this. They don't care that it's erasing Bantu history. They're only focused on them. This is normally happens with the people who are not indigenous on a land. They can only remember their history to a certain part because it doesn't exist prior to that. And so the rest of us that have a far more ancient history, we understand history completely different. Okay, I'm going to explain to you. Okay, so that's the Sahara Desert. That's the Kalahari Desert. A lot of Arab scholars and people who promote North Africa and says that Arabs are indigenous to North Africa. I keep telling you guys that no, they are not, right? And we can get into the definition of Arab, another day. But for now, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? You can bring in the Berbers all you want. Berbers are not indigenous to Africa because if they were, they wouldn't have just stayed here. They would also be here, right? They would be here, they would be here, they would be here. They are here because the so-called Middle East is here. I don't know why people have a hard time knowing that these people came here. These people are not indigenous, including the Berbers. They're not, okay? And I can prove that to you. So go argue with them, and they will tell you that they dress the way they dress because this is a desert. Right? And this is desert life, and we don't dress for the desert, which is 100% correct. No, we don't dress for the desert. That's because 10,000 years ago, that area was green. Okay? That area used to be green. You see how the Kalahari Desert here is still, brownish and, these colors are relevant to, greenery, to dryness. So even when the Kalahari was dry, there was still lush over here. Now what? Okay, so now I can place Bantu there. That's why we don't have desert outfits. Because one of the things that we understand about our history is that they brought the desert with them. To know African culture and indigeneity, ask any culture that dresses how it dresses today. Say, show me your indigenous people. Because your indigenous people cannot come from a desert. Because this was not a desert. So when we got pushed out and that became a desert, we obviously didn't dress up to cover for the sand. The other thing also that you want to notice is that religion is dated to 2,000 years ago. Okay, so North Africa is luscious 7,000 years ago, right? Luscious. Islam is dated 2,000 years ago or less. What is that? 7th century? So all of them, we'll just say 2,000 years. That's Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Islam is the younger religion, with Judaism being the oldest. But so Judaism is about 2,000 years old, right? Because they were counting the years, based on Jesus' birth and, death. So if Islam is not 7,000 years old, and North Africa was lush, Who was living there then? Because it definitely wasn't people who had to cover themselves for the desert. Again, those people would have to show us their ancestors before there was a desert. This is how simple this stuff is. But when you come with prejudice and ignorance, you make it look like it's complicated. It's really not that complicated. Okay, so this history is important, especially with the content that we share here. When I show you guys, musical instruments, things that are connected to Bantu people, it's because us Bantu can place our history thousands and thousands, moreover, over more than 2,000 years ago. We can place our history. Other people cannot do that, and they're stuck. And so we're just trying to figure out, like, is this, willful ignorance? Because you can sit here and talk about indigeneity when you cannot give us your people before that. Moreover, all those pictures of Egypt, also, those people up there are not dressed for the desert. And the other thing also, I think one of the, the pyramids, or when you date one of them, I can't remember, like thousands of years, like nothing crazy, like 3, 5, or 10,000 years ago. But anyway, even when we place some of those pyramids, it is prior to the Arabization of North Africa. There's a lot going on in this history. And they're not going to come fix it for us, you guys. They're not. We have to work on it. And we are the ones that have to retell it and reteach it. Don't be shy. This stuff is very easy. But when you've been manipulated for a long time, now when you stand back, you can look at it and be like, yeah, this whole time we should have been knowing that. But it's not your fault. But it will be if you do nothing about it now that you know.